Hello, Global Theater. My name is Gerry Fialka. Today's Feb 6, 2026. Want to thank Rob Grant and his amazing podcast, I'm Probably Wrong About Everything. Also want to thank Kelly Kuvo for introducing me and praising our guest today, Tony Buba. Where are you calling from, Tony?
Braddock Hills, Pennsylvania, right
And
outside of Pittsburgh, right near the Braddock, PA, which of course is where the former mayor is famous, is John Fetterman, who's the state senator now from
right.
Pennsylvania.
Okay, Tony, the first question is, what is the best thing for a human being?
The best thing for a human being. This is, I come from such a, I come from a period, I'm 82, so I'm from a real sort of privileged male background in some ways, no wealth or anything, working class. But for me, one of the best things for a human being was just interaction with others. It was always hanging on the street corner doing that. But now I've changed a little of my thoughts. I mean, there's so much going on in this world. I'm just amazed. I suffer from depression every once in a while. I'm just really amazed why people just don't go up and just get up in the morning and blow their brains out. I mean, people that don't do that, I mean, it's just, for me, it's just life. Life seems to be the most important thing. If you can survive and just get up in the morning and not think about outing yourself, I mean, to me, it's just an amazing day. I mean, it's like.
Really well put, Tony. My hero filmmaker, Louis Buñuel, said, "Long live the living."
Yes.
What's your favorite form of information? How it comes into you?
Well, I'm really showing my age. I mean, it went back to when I was a kid reading 3 or 4 newspapers a day. That was my favorite. That was my favorite form. Then, of course, that I was never big on television news coming in. It was that, and at that time also just hanging out on the street corner, listening to all the people talk and all the stories and tales and trying to figure out what wasn't real, where they're exaggerating. And that more recently, I mean, I haven't close friend, political activists, but I've really sort of stopped watching news since my wife passed. I really haven't, sort of really not done much of anything. I mean, it's been a tough 2 months here, but it was usually, I mean, as a kid, it was newspapers, and today it's still researching papers and books.
Yeah. Did you very good, Tony, and I send my condolences, best wishes to you, and in regards to your wife, amazing. How many years were you together?
43.
Oh my God. Well, let's go on that for a second. How do you explain the longevity?
It was, I keep telling people we met. I mean, the thing is, we met at the Athens Film Festival.
Oh my God, you're kidding.
We met in 1982 at the Athens Film Festival. I was doing a retrospective in 82 at the tender age of 38 or something. And she saw this one film of mine called Betty's Corner Cafe. And she saw the film and she said, I have to be with that person.
Oh my God. That's my favorite, Tony, that's my favorite line when people say, I went to a film festival in Europe. I says, yeah, did you get laid? I mean, it's a joke. And you literally got laid from your film.
She says, I have to, and what happened was, I mean, I was I was judging the festival. So that evening, a film played called Diaries by Ed Pincus.
Yes.
And it was a 3-hour doc. And, afterwards, my wife came out and she said, what'd you think of that film? And I said, well, I got confused at times. All the women had the long brown, straight hair. I couldn't tell them apart. And I said, then the whole thing about an open relationship, an open marriage. I said, I mean, I really don't understand that at all. And I said it in sort of a snippy type of way. So she says to me, she said, I have an open relationship. That's like,
wow.
Then I keep telling people, I mean, so she came into my life like a lightning bolt, boom. And then on December 9th, I was gone, left the house for 80 minutes, come back home, and she was on the floor gone. So she left my life the same way, like a lightning bolt in and left like a lightning
Oh
bolt.
my God. I really feel for you. And when you sent that email, it was devastating, and her picture. But I
Yeah.
really feel for you, and my condolences are flowing fully to you. So back to reading 3 newspapers. Did you become a reader, one, because your parents told you to, two, they did it as an example, or three, on your own?
Well, my parents were never, I mean, my mom never, I mean, I think she went to the 8th grade, if she got that far. She came from Italy, and my dad, he worked in the mill, but they always had newspapers in the house. It was
Yeah.
like, we had the morning paper, the afternoon paper, so we always read, and I was interested in reading sports things at the time. So my dad just subscribed to every newspaper so I could read the sports
Wow.
thing. They were never readers, but yeah, that's I got hooked on doing that. And my brother, I mean, my brother also, but my brother, I was pre-World War II. I was born in 43. And
Yeah.
there was a big difference between my brother was born 2.5 years later. My dad came home on furlough. He was conceived. My dad wanted to name him Furlough Buba, but my mom wasn't going for that. It was like, so he was his Pasquale Buba, but he was like the baby boomer generation. And there was a big shift in Braddock at that time, even in working class communities. Those of us before World War II, we thought we'd go to the mill or the factory. Those after World War II ended up like going to college.
Right. Wow.
Yeah.
And so why do you think humans collect or gather information?
Well, at one point I always thought it was so we wouldn't make the mistakes from the past.
Yeah.
But now, if what's going on today, I don't think that's true. So I do
Really?
information. I mean, it's like if we're not learning from it, you might as well just lose it. Like the Romans lost the recipe for concrete many centuries ago. But
wow. Well, is this need or want to collect information more innate or more invented?
I think it's a combination. For me, it's more. I mean, I always want information, and I think it's for me, it's more innate. For other, I just need to know. I mean, even if it's like your life or something. I mean, I need to know stuff. For me, it's always been innate, even if it's not on an academic level. I just always need to know whether it was shooting pool or bowling. I mean, I need to know the information.
Dude, you know what really touched me already, Tony, was I get my information from talking to guys on the street corner. That is the coolest thing, because you would love Venice, California. That's all I do. I ride my bike down to the boardwalk and talk to people. And you can get all different types, and you can meet homeless people. And, I said, our town is great. You would love it. It's like you can be next to a homeless street wino who's standing next to a millionaire movie director, and you can't tell the difference. but if you go to Marina Del Rey or Santa Monica, you can tell the difference. But we all blend in. So the street corner talking is like more organic and flowing.
Yeah, I mean, what shocked me the most over the years is the disappearance of street corner culture.
Yeah.
I mean, that's real. I mean, I thought that would never disappear. I mean, I thought I'd be one of those old guys hanging in front of the newsstand or the bookie joint.
Yeah.
And bullshitting to the younger people. Yeah. It's like, that kind
of. My hero was an Altacocker, this old Jewish guy. He was like 10, 20 years older than you. And all he did was sit at the boardwalk. And I learned so much from him by just talking,
Yeah. It was, this is a true story. My brother, I mean, we hung out in front of this J&G dairy store. And back then, before there was, legalized gambling, all these little grocery stores, they booked numbers, they did a little booking on the side, and and that's how they made their money, not selling the candy or the groceries. But in front of this J&G, there's a guy we called British. He was from the islands, is a black man from the islands, speaking a British accent, and he would recite Shakespeare on the corner. He'd just get drunk.
Right.
He knew every sonnet. He knew every place. So we're there. We listened to him, before the police would come down and take him off and arrest him, put him in the cell for a day or two, and then we'd see him again. But he got my brother interested in Shakespeare. Yeah. So now we flash forward like 30 some years thing. My brother is interviewing with Al Pacino for a film called Looking for Richard.
Right.
And because my brother got interested in Shakespeare from this guy British, I mean, he ended up getting the job and editing that film, looking for Richard.
Yeah.
Pacino. Yeah. There was just, but yeah, I mean, those corners are just, there always was a mix. And at that time, the doctors, they didn't live in suburbs somewhere. They lived up on the hill.
Exactly.
The closer you got to the river, the more common the people were, but the doctors and the school teachers and the lawyer lived up on the hill, but we all lived in the same community.
Yeah.
And you'd be in a corner with them.
Well, that's why the cops come from the suburbs. And in the old days, the cop would find the kid robbing the store and he'd go, "Oh, you're Joe's son. I'm not going to beat the shit out of you, but I'm going to throw you in a juvie home and punish you." But they don't beat him up. And now it's like, no.
Yeah.
So, yeah, really good points. Do thoughts create emotions?
Do thoughts create emotion? Well, for me, they do. Yeah. For me, thoughts do create emotion. I mean, I whether it's thinking of my grandmother making tripe or chicken feet, or from to my brother, for me, thoughts create emotion.
Fill in the blank, Tony. I don't know what I think until I
don't know what I think until I actually experience it.
Yeah. That's one of the most popular answers I get. McLuhan says, "I don't know what I think until I say it." Joan Didion says, "I don't know what I think until I write it." But one of my favorite answers was a couple weeks ago. This woman says, "I don't know what I think until I rant about it for 30 minutes." But experience is what life's about. So that's you. Tony, can humans think without language?
I believe they can. I believe you can think without language. I mean, I believe they can. I mean, I've never done any studies. I don't know what a person is. I mean, did Helen Keller think without language? I mean, I don't.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I believe people do think without language.
Chomsky says language is not just words. It's a culture, a tradition, a unification of community, a whole history that creates what a community is. Tony, what do you do when language doesn't work? When language breaks down, what do you do?
Yeah, for me, a good example is whenever I go visit relatives in Italy, because I have a bad ear. I can't speak Italian for a darn, and just but especially in a village where they speak a specific dialect at one time, and for me, it's a lot of animation, a lot of movement, a lot of gestures.
Yeah.
Just really a lot of performance. I do a lot of performance to get it across, and to throw in a bad pronounced word every once in a while. It's mostly performing, and just when figure out when to smile, when not to smile, that kind of reaction, which I've always been good at being like. I would never be a good lead, but I'm always good as a secondary character, a reacting type person.
Yeah. Well, you're articulate and concise, and you're really painting a picture. I understand what you're saying. Thank you, Tony. And do you think your observations of humans in general, are we more thinking beings or more feeling beings?
Well, I've been going through, for me, I've always been able to compartmentalize things. So I've been more thinking. I mean, a lot of feeling, but I'm reading these letters that were written many years ago between my wife and I when we were first dating, and she was really like a thinking, feeling person. I mean, what she wrote about, what she was talking for me, it's really a combination. I mean, me, I really like. There's just something innate. So you feel something, and it's just there, and and I've never been good articulating. It's probably why I started doing films, because if I could write, I would always would have been a Studs Terkel. I mean, but
Oh my God, that's my hero. That is so cool. Studs.
yeah, I mean that's who I would have been if I was able to write. I mean, but I
Yeah.
never, yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, back to sitting on the street corner. I mean, that's what Studs really was about, sitting on the street corner with a microphone and talking to people.
And him, well, he was a great editor too. That was like,
right. He's my hero. But you can't, we invented the words thinking and feeling, so we think we can separate them. We probably can't separate them. And here's how most people answer, Tony. I think we're more feeling beings. So Bridget Bardot says, when I make love, I don't think. I'm like, good luck. How do you turn your brain off? Or people who meditate go, think about not thinking. And there's a bumper sticker on a car on my street. It says, don't believe everything you think. And I'm like, well, you could say, don't believe everything you feel.
That's right.
These are two from Alan Turing in the 50s. One, is thinking a function of the soul?
Ooh. Yeah, I believe it is. I believe it is a function of the soul. Yeah, I mean, I was like, I was raised Catholic. I was an altar boy till I was like 18 years old, and so the whole Catholic Church influence on me and soul. I mean, it's gone somewhat, but it's never totally gone. It's there.
No.
So it's to me, the thinking comes from the soul.
Beautiful. The second Turing question is, can machines think?
This is an interesting question because I've been thinking about this. I've been thinking about this with AI. Can machines think? I mean, not without human input. We put it in there. I mean, the whole AI question that comes up to me, is why can't we just pull the plug? I mean, the machines don't. They need electricity. I mean, why we can still determine it. Why do we have to go so far into it? I mean, so without human input, no, machines can't think at the moment. No.
Yeah. That's like they asked AI a question and then the guy wrote in, thanks to AI. He says, thanks. I hope you have a good weekend. And AI responding goes, I can't respond to that. I can't say it, So do you more pursue happiness or more pursue meaning?
Whoa. Do I pursue happiness? I mean, all the meaning in my life has given me happiness. I mean, so I mean, it's generated it. I mean, everything from my family to where I grew up. I mean, it's all given me meaning, but it's also given me happiness. I mean, there's some sadness thrown at me, but it's really like without really like, I really didn't understand my thought many years ago when I was working in a plumbing supply house for 3 years. I'd been in the service. I was working in a factory, and I didn't quite know anything. Then I decided at 25 to try college.
Yeah.
And it was like, then all of a sudden having these different professors it gave like the meaning to what I was thinking. I mean, I was thinking this, but I didn't quite understand what I was thinking or what it was meaning. And then it came out within me. And I was pretty depressed up until I started college. And after that, I mean, the meaning, once I understood meaning, it did bring me happiness.
Wow. Really good, Tony, because I got the question from Viktor Frankl's book, Man's Search for Meaning. And he says, happiness doesn't tend to last, meaning tends to last. What do you think of that?
I think he's right. I mean, there's a Japanese expression, never be too happy with happiness because it's going to turn into sadness, and never be too sad with sadness because you're going to be happy. I mean, I do.
Wow. It's beautiful. Does the brain more detect consciousness or create it? Like, is consciousness there bubbling away and we're more so detecting it or more so creating it?
I believe, for the most part, I detect consciousness.
Yeah.
And then when I apply it for my films, I create it. I mean, I create something from what I detected earlier, but it's different with the creation. It's with the construct of it. It's more of a construction, I guess, than creation. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, for me, it's detection. Yeah.
What's faster, speed of light or speed of thought?
Whoa. Well, sometimes I think I get in trouble with the speed of thought going faster than the speed of light, because the words come out of my mouth too quickly, and I should have like counted to 10. But yeah, that's
Counted to, yeah. But that's I work for George Carlin, and we got a flyer in the mail and it says, I'm trying to get more control over my spontaneity.
yeah,
You know, you want it to happen spontaneous, but then sometimes you want to go, whoa, you should have take a deep breath there, dude, and think for a second.
Well, many years ago, I got a note from a distributor called Zeitgeist Films,
Oh yeah.
and George Carlin had bought all my films.
Oh, that is great.
Yeah.
George was a real lover of studying the human condition. And after I stopped working for him, I would supply him. It was pre-internet, with VHS tapes, printed matter, audio cassettes, like a information source.
Wow.
He bought all your films. How cool is that? Audre Lorde said, she's a poet. You can't dismantle the master's house using the master's tools. Her colleague Yvonne Rainer said, oh, you can if you expose the tools. What new tool do you suggest? And it doesn't have to be tangible.
Whoa. I mean, I sort of understand. I understand both quotes, because I always thought that a lot with documentary film. How do you make a film using conventions that have been laid out there for years that people follow, without like trying to fight against the structure? I mean, that's what the whole thing with experimental film. I mean,
yeah,
doing that to tear it down. Ooh, repeat that again.
It's basically, I open some of these questions with cute quotes. It doesn't mean you have to apply it. I'm basically asking, what tool do you most gravitate towards? Then you can add the word new if you want,
Okay.
or you can add the phrase dismantling the master's house.
Yeah, well, for me, when I started out, I mean, the tool was new. It was 16 millimeter filmmaking. I really got interested in that from, I got lucky and got a work study job at the campus TV station before 1969. I really had no interest in film. I mean, it wasn't something from a working class background that you thought you were going to get into and make your own films. You had no idea who shot them, who was behind a camera, and how they existed. So I started that, and I saw Boone Wells' Land Without Bread.
No, that's what kicked you over?
Oh man, I saw Land Without Bread. You know, I mean, most people talk about Land Without Bread, plus all the stuff coming from third world newsreel, with Black Panthers, Marching Street, and the propaganda films coming from Vietnam. But it was Lou Buell with that. If they would just move down the street 6 miles down the road, the berries would be ripe and they wouldn't die of dysentery. This brick, and it just blew me away. I mean, so that
is the greatest film. That is so funny
so then I started. That's how I started thinking about film. At that time, there were a lot of documentaries being made, but they all followed the same formula.
Yeah.
And they did it perfectly. So you couldn't really improve on it. The interview with the old lefty, the Pete Seeger music, the cutaway to archival footage, that type of style. And I think, well, they've done it perfect. How can I even do that? Without being so derivative. So then I tried thinking of Buñuel and how you just present stuff, and it seems like it's normal, but it's just surreal. I mean, this is what, and that really,
I mean, that totally blows me away. And I really got to thank Kelly again, because she goes, I saw this guy's films. You've got to see him, Gerry. And I goes, how haven't I ever seen him? And so then, this is really encouraging to me, because what happened with Land Without Bread is it's considered an essay film. Which is a fake documentary. it's a double fake. It's not
Yeah.
a fake documentary. It's not a mockumentary.
Yeah.
It's a double fake. And you can't quite figure out whether Buñuel is fucking with you or
Right.
he's telling you the truth, because he's doing both, because that's a human condition.
Mhm.
But he would show that film at men's, like, how men's clubs have, here's my travels to Africa, and they would
Oh, right.
stand.
They used to be at the museums doing that at one
Yeah,
time.
and he would stand next to the screen and narrate the film. When Buñuel first showed Land Without Bread, he would stand next to the screen and narrate it. And so that even made it more like real. And that is, I mean, I have so much invested in studying that film, because the big one is when the sheep falls off the side of the mountain and they
Right.
go, we have to shoot they insinuate, all the heavy cinephiles go, oh, they shot that sheep. I go, no, not necessarily. He could have shot a gun and the powder goes off and taken a dead sheep and pushed it off. Because knowing Buñuel, he would mess with stuff, because he said a great statement. He said, if you come out of a film and you go, wow, wasn't the cinematography great? That means the filmmaker failed. Now me and you understand that, a good shot is a good shot and it helps. But he was really saying, if you're telling a story, you don't want to be aware of that too much, where it's, great filmmaking and that supersedes you getting the story.
Yeah, I always felt that with, like, when people talk about great acting. I mean,
Right.
I never really understood that either. It's like,
Right.
Buñuel's influence is like heavily enlightening over Braddock. I mean, just, Buñuel and Brecht. I mean, just the fourth wall and playing with it, and just in, like, for Lightning, what I really wanted the audience to do, which they did, was get upset with me as the director.
I read
Instead of being-
that you said that.
instead of
That is
instead of being
pure
all-knowing.
Buñuel. That's
Yeah,
pure Buñuel, Tony. He said, I want, if I don't upset people, I failed. And you're not maliciously saying that. What you want people to do is what McLuhan said to Ezra Pound is, needle the somnambulism. You want them to jump out of their comfort zone.
Yeah, I want them to question what you're watching, what you're seeing.
Yeah.
I didn't want to make some sort of, sort of left wing type stuff that ends up being just more masturbatory propaganda type of.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, did you slip in Brecht there, Bertolt Brecht?
But yeah.
You said Buñuel and Brecht. Okay, because we're going to get to filmmaking, but I love how you snuck this all in. This was really good. You just went for the gusto. And so I asked people what tool they gravitate towards. And then one guy says, well, what about a toy? So is there a toy you gravitate towards?
Well, I used to as a kid. Well, I don't know if you consider. Well, one was the yo-yo. I used to follow the yo-yo people around town. And they do the tricks. And I one of my dreams was to be like a yo-yo champion. I went so far as a kid that I'd only use my left hand in practice because I didn't want to ruin my right hand finger of doing the yo-yo and the barking, the rock, cradle rock, and those. And the other was shooting pool. I loved hanging out in pool rooms, and my fantasy when I was like 18 was to be a pool shark. I mean, of course, The Hustler came out about that time, and all that.
What a film!
And that was sort of my fantasy. Except I realized, you get into it, that I was only going to get so good because my stroke wasn't that great. So whatever I could get so good, but I know I couldn't go above. What I was, that kind of thing.
No, you're too cool for school, Tony. You're like my hero. All these people grow up and they go, I want to be a filmmaker, and then they and really what you are is a person who's a normal person who just happened to find their calling, and so you stayed true to being a normal person.
Yeah, it was really, and I can tell you, this could have been bowling, or it could have been anything. It happened to be something for some reason I was good at. I have no. I remember one of my first classes taking film production at Ohio University. It was a matching action. We had a cut and the person matched a scene. And at that time, I was living with this woman, Terry, and she used to wear, it's the 70s. She wore like combat boots. And
Yeah.
so she's on her, so I did her like brushing her hair, shooting reflection, cutting to her on the rocking chair in her feet. And so I did the matching action like the assignment said, and I show it in class. And there's one person taking the class was auditing. She taught graphics at OU. And she said to me, man, that's just really great how you cut with the femininity or brushing of the hair and the masculinity of the boots. I mean, I had no idea what the fuck she was talking about. It was just
but that again is the user is the content. McLuhan's line is the user can do whatever they want with your art. And that's why you have this great attitude. Like, I just want people to question me. Don't you, so if you spoon feed them, say, here's how you have to think, that's not going to move us forward. Creating the atmosphere for the human to question is where it's all at.
Yeah, I mean, I did another film on my grandmother called Washing Walls with Mrs. G. And so I go back and think, but I also I like structuralism too. If I'm stuck on something, I use a math problem. Well, I washed walls for my grandmother every year. So I had 4 walls in the house. I have 4 100-foot rolls of film. So I loaded them in the camera, and the camera person was this Nick Mastandrea. He says, "What should I do?" I says, "I don't know. Just don't pan, don't tilt, don't zoom, don't move. Just keep my grandmother in the frame. I don't care where I'm at in the frame." So we did it, and I pieced it together, and I showed it. And the comments from the museum director was, how I was playing with off-screen action and the dynamics of the frame. And once again, I just started using that language in my grant writing, but I had no idea what it was about. I'm not a great.
Then you ended up being a film professor, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
How many years did you teach?
Well, I taught mostly what I did. I taught. I was off and on. I was always the visiting artist that came in, the visiting filmmaker, someone going sabbatical. So I was like at University of Southern Illinois for a year, Ohio University for a year. So I'd bounce around, University of Wisconsin and Madison, that kind of thing. But that was always fun because you didn't get tied down with politics in the department. So you were able just to put all your energy in with the students. So it was really a good moment for me for teaching.
Yeah,
that kind of teaching.
That's what I go in, and I used to do a guest lecture, and it was so cool because you could get away with murder.
Yeah, exactly. You're going to be gone in a year, so it doesn't matter who you insult.
Yeah, right.
Or who gets mad at you.
Tony, it's really fun. What do you worry about when you go to bed at night?
Well, that's changed since my wife had me. Before that, what I was really worried about was me dying first, and my wife being stuck with these properties and all the stuff in the house. What was she going to do with all my film equipment and motors? I mean, that was like a big concern of mine. And now, of course, that has changed and she's gone. But that was like a worry. I mean, the worries change as you get, of course, as you get older.
Yeah.
When you have that first major breakup when you're in your late 20s and the world looks like it's going to end, and you want to commit suicide, then it's 50 years later, you wouldn't recognize that person if they walk down the street. But at that moment, so you worried about, am I ever going to meet somebody again? Then, so the worries change. Then you worry about financially at a moment, which, you start hitting your 30s, 40s, how am I going to exist when I'm 60, that kind of thing. But the worries for me always change. Of course, now the big worry is where's this country going? I mean, that's
huge.
I mean, I mean, and even for me, some of it's even okay, some of it's even selfish thinking because if it keeps going in this direction, what's going to happen to all my work over here? I mean, it's being housed at the university, but will they even allow it to be anywhere? Will they just destroy stuff? That kind of.
Well, do you have your films stored in an archive?
Well, the University of Wisconsin and Madison, they're housing all my work. Yeah. So I've been shipping stuff. Yeah. So they have everything. So they're doing a great job. Yeah. And I'm getting ready to ship more the paperwork stuff of when you applied for grants and your rejections and your letters and that kind of thing. Yeah.
Did you go to them or did they come to you?
It was through Dennis Doros, who has Milestone Films.
Milestone, yeah, okay. And
Dennis, he suggested Madison, and because I was there year as a visiting filmmaker for that semester, I saw him at the. They were in Pittsburgh. Was for archivists convention, and I went to them. So we talked it out and they do it, which of course made my wife happy because I was getting this stuff out of the house.
That is key. Well, that's beautiful. I'm glad you did that. Now, McLuhan learned from the poet Ezra Pound that artists are the antenna of the race. They're broadcasting and detecting the hidden psychic effects of our inventions, so we might learn how to cope with what we don't like about our inventions. So, Tony, I asked you the question McLuhan probed his whole career. Why do we ignore the hidden psychic effects of our inventions, even though the artists are broadcasting them to us?
Yeah, years ago, a filmmaker named Manny Kirchheimer out of New York. He recently passed. He was 93. He did an amazing film called Stations of the Elevated. And Stations of the Elevated was the graffiti, and it's with I think Minkus is the soundtrack, and it's it's just it's music and all the subways in New York with the paintings. And what he was really showing, and I think it's what jazz has done, with when jazz with all the dissonance was really predicting the riots in the 60s.
Yes, amazing.
And then I think like Manny's film was really, it was done in the early 80s, was predicting what was going to happen a few years later, and why people, the signs are there, and why people ignore it is I don't know if they just don't want to confront it or maintain their sanity. I'm not sure what the reasons are that we look at it and it's there. And some of these artists, we're talking about real artists that just really project this, and they know where it is. You read Baldwin or another, they come up with it and just and we constantly ignore it.
Yeah, so well put. Did you see the film Soundtrack to the Coup d'etat?
I haven't seen it yet. That's one where it's like,
dude, you gotta see it. I've interviewed him once. I've shown his films for years. He is amazing because he got nominated for an Oscar. It's like you should have been nominated for an Oscar years ago, but he slipped in somehow. And it's the history of jazz and CIA killing of African politicians. It's ridiculously deep. And it's it is didactic in a lot of ways because you're reading all the time, but it is telling us something that you just articulated, in that why did jazz go, Ornette and Sun Ra and out, and Miles was freaking. He was like this when Ornette was playing in New York. He was like, dude, this is horrible. And it was like, no, Ornette was just feeling the zeitgeist of the time. Yes, amazing. Yeah. That you can articulate that is really beautiful. Now, do artists have moral obligation?
I believe I have a moral obligation as an artist. Yeah, I do. For others, it's maybe not, but for me, yeah, it's definitely, I have it have it through my work of who I'm representing. I can't distort who even like some films I've made, I've got criticized because I didn't push like one agenda more than another, but I only could be like honest to the material. So I have an obligation to the people I'm interviewing or the people I'm filming.
Yeah.
There's that. But then there's also, I think what filmmakers, what artists, in terms of what they don't really talk about is, for moral obligation, is when you get grants. Everybody brags about the grants they get, but to me, all grants, even the ones I got, it's all blood money. Yeah. Someone somewhere didn't get paid because that foundation has extra money. The foundation is a donation from someone's, endowment, their profits. So there's a kid somewhere in the Congo, digging metals that is not making any money. And, then you get a Guggenheim and you brag, oh man, people really expect my work, but you really have to acknowledge where that money is blood money that you end up using. So how do you end up creating with it? What do you create? If you're creating something so personal, or, I mean, you really have to think about that if for the work you end up doing. I mean, I do anyways. I mean, it's always like in the back of my head. I mean, it's, and some of that came from Christine Choi. Christine Choi, she recently passed. She did Who Killed Vincent Chin? Yeah. And Christine Choi was asked about how could she accept money from the Playboy Foundation. And that's when she said, and it really, I mean, that's when she said, she says, why not? She says, you take money from the NEA, that's blood money. Yeah. So that really got me thinking and really questioning. Doing, once again, it's like picking up my knowledge, just listening to, to other artists and other filmmakers.
Yeah.
Someone back there petted your head.
Yeah. That was amazing, because you really brought so much to the surface, because like if you win a Guggenheim, supposedly you don't have to answer. You can go buy drugs or whatever you want. And they don't say, but most of your grants that you got to detail what you're spending the money on.
Right.
And that's the history of art. Rich government and religious dudes were giving artists money. So that's the artists that we knew. But there were poor artists that were making great stuff, like Vincent Van Gogh, who died, and then they make $1 gazillion off him. So there's a lot of issues you brought up there. But the blood money thing reminded me of, Fred Camper, the Chicago Reader. He's been writing about experimental film in Chicago for like 50 years. He's a good writer. And I says, have you ever been to Ann Arbor Film Festival? He goes, no. And I goes, how could you not go? It's 6, you're right. You're not that far. He says, because I don't believe in award money. And that was funny, because George Manupelli, who started the festival, did not want to give out prize money. And then somebody gave him money and says, give this out as an award. And he was like, oh no. And so then it becomes this thing, like, you're awarding money. And he was like, no. He says, the money should be going to all the filmmakers, because they're all struggling. And then this great guy, I can't think of his name, Know Nothing film guy in San Francisco, he was on the panel, the judges, and he says, okay, how are you going to divide your money out to the winning films? He goes, I'm not going to do that. I want you to take my chunk of the money and give everybody who entered like $2 or something. And it was like the director of the festival freaked. She goes, I had to write all these checks. I was like, that's what an experiment. That's why George started it. So it was an experimental film festival. So, but the other thing was, moral obligation. Go back to our source, Louis Buñuel. When I saw Los Olvidados, it's like street kids beating up a blind guy. I was like, oh my God, is he promoting that or what? Because, it almost like over romanticized them as, but it was laying out the human condition. But again, Pasolini, Buñuel, some of these filmmakers, most people say, yes, we have to have moral obligations, but isn't that what art can be, is against or questioning our morals?
Yeah, because there's that sort of whole Flaherty tradition, or even you go back to of where I've never been a believer that when you make a documentary about somebody, there has to be growth at the end. That this person has to grow. I mean, it's like, most people I know were assholes at 16 or assholes at 50. I mean, it's just like, it's very, the growth is minimal. And this film I did on a Sal that Palazzolo liked, I mean, I was using it to submit for grants.
Yeah.
And I got rejected. And I remember, this is when my wife first moved with me to Pittsburgh. I got rejected from this local regional media grant. And I thought that, oh man, they think this film is so bad. This was for Lightning Over Braddock. Nobody wants to fund it. But then I found out, so actually I got depressed. Didn't get out of bed for 3 days. So my wife, she comes upstairs on the third day and says, get your fucking ass out of bed. It says, I didn't move to Pittsburgh for you to lay around. So I found out from a person in the panel what it was. They didn't like Sal. as a person. They didn't even were looking at the film. They just found him. Why make a film on this character
Right.
that was like, so yeah, to me, he was part of my life when I was like 15. He was 30. He had the Cadillac, the bookie joint, and this kind of stuff. So that kind of thing. And when I first started doing these films, there was, it's the early 70s, mid 70s. It was still mostly trust fund babies.
Yes.
In film school. So nobody had seen these people on the screen before. And and actually you mentioned Pauline Kael, and I did get a Guggenheim, and her and George Stoney were on the panel. And so
well,
Pauline,
that's all the power to you, because I mean, you said some heavy stuff there, because it's, do you want to humanize your protagonist? Errol Morris took McNamara and humanized a war criminal. And I said to my wife's dad, who worked as a Marxist Freudian, who worked with the Panthers and Cesar Chavez, and I says, he humanized a war criminal. I know it's a good film, but I don't like humanizing a war criminal. And David said, humanizing anyone is good. So you humanizing Sal was good, because you allowed him to show his humanity. And the flip, Tony, is when my friends saw David Lynch's Blue Velvet, and everybody and their mother was like, that's a great film. And she goes, well, I guess it's a good film, but I don't want to spend 2 hours of my life with those people.
Well, Blue Velvet, I use Blue Velvet as an example of the difference of like my approach to filmmaking, in that David Lynch went into the suburbs and was looking for all the bugs underneath.
Yeah.
the decay, where I see the decay and I'm looking for the humanity behind it.
Right. He lets you look down in the grass and see a cut off ear. Yeah. Tony, are you more afraid of new ideas or more afraid of old ideas?
Boy, I'm more afraid of old ideas.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like, I think that's, I mean, I don't know how much work I'll continue making, but sometimes, I mean, I look at a lot of work today, and it's just, and I'm falling into the trap of these sort of the same thing of the straight on interview and the cutaways, and not really thinking of anything new. I mean, that's why I do like to still go to film festivals just to see what people are doing.
Yeah.
That's changing and trying to fight against it. And I look at a lot of work that's being done by some younger folks around Pittsburgh, and it's really pretty derivative.
Yeah.
But they're looking to try to, I mean, which I'm critical of, but they're also looking at it as a career.
Yeah.
Where I didn't, I mean, I got into film, but I always thought, if worst came to worst, I could, I worked in a plumbing supply, I could be a plumber's helper. I mean, it's like, I mean, it's just like, this is what I like doing, but if I can't make any money on it, I mean, I ended up being a decent audio technician, which I ended up making most of my money doing audio.
Did you really? That audio tech is how you made your money mainly?
Well, that's what I did, is freelancing in Pittsburgh. It was like working on industrial videos.
Yeah.
And doing audio, working on industrial videos was almost a brainless task, because you just went out and, you listen to sounds of the factory or do a straight on interview. So then the evening I wasn't exhausted and I could work on my own work. But
that's the key.
I mean, outside of working with Romero's, I worked with Romero. I mean, those were exhausting jobs, but I learned a lot working on those.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, again, I mean, what was he? He made his money being a book publisher. He didn't make George Romero made his money being a book publisher, didn't he? Or
no, he published a couple. No, George was like, it was all film. He never really, I mean, he was like, when I first started working with him, he was like tapped out. What happened was he had made Night of the Living Dead.
Yeah. But he didn't make any money on that, did he?
He didn't make much money on that. But then he made 3 films. I think it was, one was Jack's Wife. Then there's Always Vanilla. And the other one's called The Crazies, that lost a lot of money. Yeah. And so what he ended up doing, when I met him, we were working on a sports series called The Winners. And plus he was doing commercials, because morally, he did not want to go into bankruptcy. He did not, he wanted to repay those investors. Right. So he took all these other jobs to repay investors. And then Then when his comeback film was shot in my mother's house, actually called Martin, it was a vampire.
Martin, right?
Then he made Dawn of the Dead. Yeah.
Yeah. But what an amazing character, because that whole story of Night of the Living Dead is amazing.
Yeah.
Or for tapping in the zeitgeist feeling of what was happening at that age, that time, and having the Black protagonist.
Yes.
That was heavy. And so,
George's scripts were always, working with George was interesting because even like Martin, the vampire movie, I really liked the script because I was reading the vampire as, the town itself had been sucked out by capitalism. And so now Martin is a vampire. Now he's sucking the blood from the people, which is really, just an extension.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I have to tell you the George Romero story that I love. So he calls us up in Ann Arbor and says, we have a film group called the Ann Arbor Film Co-op, and I want to test, I want to show my film to a college campus and just do a test screening. So we had 400 seats and we had a great projector, projectionist, so he could show anything. So we show the print and, we say, okay, it's a free screening. We were only charging $1.50 to see the films anyways, but it was a free screening. So, the reputation, because we had bought a copy of Night of the Living Dead because it was in public domain. And every time we showed it, we made tons of money so we could show all the other stuff. Like Herzog would make no money then. All the stuff that didn't make money, we were financing through making film, showing films like Night of the Living Dead. And so then we have the screening and announce it, and immediately the hall fills up completely. And I'm standing at the door and like, okay, we don't have any more seats. And the students were literally doing what the film was going to show. They were trying to get in, and I was holding the doors back. It was like the greatest memory I have in showing films for 8 years. It was really funny.
Well, you mentioned Herzog. Herzog was critical in my career.
Oh, wow. Was he?
Yeah. Herzog was in the Carnegie in Pittsburgh. They had a film screening program, and they had brought, I can't remember, I think it was like 79. They had brought Herzog in, who was showing all his films.
Yeah.
So Herzog wanted to see films by local filmmakers. So they had a Saturday, which he wanted to see films by local filmmakers. And someone had called me. I didn't know he was in town. I didn't know it's Pittsburgh filmmakers at the time. And I get a phone call and says, Herzog wants to look at local people's work, telling you want to bring something down. And I had just finished that Sal film. I just got back in town.
Yeah.
So I went down there, and it's 25 minutes long. So
Yeah.
I go into the filmmakers. This person at the door said, how long's your film? I said, it's about a half hour. He said, well, can we only show 5 minutes of it? Because
what?
He said, well, they said, because there's a lot of films for Herzog to see. So I said, okay, yeah. I said, that's fine. So put it up. So they put it up, and Herzog's, Sal comes up, and he's this character, and Herzog looks at it, and they shut the projector off. No, I want to see more. I want to see more. And it's like, so they ran the half-hour film. And he says, do you have any more films to me? I says, yeah, I got them out in the car. Bring them in. So I showed him all so I hogged up the whole day. Then we met him for breakfast. Then he wanted to meet me for breakfast the following day. And I met him, he goes on, Tony, you must steal if necessary to keep making films. You must steal. So that ended up, the person who was the director of the film program at the Carnegie at that time, because of Herzog's time, he ended up giving me a screening at the Carnegie, which was my first museum screening. And it was really because of Herzog.
But you said he was critical. You mean he was praising you?
He was critical. Yeah. He was praising the film. He loved to say, he loved the Sal film. He wanted to see everything I made because the Sal character, I'm sure it was, a lot like, what's his name? I'm having a senior moment, from
Klaus Kinski.
Klaus Kinski, yeah.
That is good. No, that's a great story. I really appreciate that, because I have encounters with Herzog that I can talk about. And actually, after we get through the the philosophical questions, we're going to finally get into documentary filmmaking and filmmaking in general. But it was inevitable that we would dive in before. So, can you conjure up your earliest memory ever, or one of them?
Yeah, one of my earliest memories is I was probably maybe 3 or 4 years old. I was going to my cousins were a year older than me. They lived practically next door to us, and they were going to kindergarten. And I think I was like 3, and I remember going to kindergarten. So I cried so much because I wanted to go to kindergarten with my cousins, and it was at a Polish school. So it was like a Polish kindergarten. I'm there, and we were fighting with some other kids outside in the recess. And I remember the nuns taking us up to the bell tower at the school. And they told us, she said, okay, I'm going to look in your eyes. If I see red in your eyes, I know you're guilty. If I see green, I know you're innocent. She said, were you fighting in the playground? So of course I said, no. It's like, she says, you're guilty. I see red in your eyes.
Oh my God.
So that's one of my earliest memories. Then I remember my mother, she was born in Italy. I remember coming home singing Polish folk songs. So she pulled me out of kindergarten. That was like,
wow.
We
have a lot in common. I'm a Polish Catholic from Flint, Michigan, and my relatives were in Pennsylvania.
That's
yeah. And it's polka music, bowling shirts, the whole bit. Yeah. So is memory more a curse or more a blessing?
Well, for me, my memories are a blessing. For me, I mean, it's just like I have really fortunate with great parents. I mean, I was a pain in the ass as a kid. They took, I don't know, it was one of these, when I was growing up, in high school, I wasn't going to graduate. I had set a school bus on fire, and it was like, but my mother never lost faith in me. And it was a period because, I thought the world was going to end. We had the Berlin crisis, the Suez crisis, and I was in the service during the Cuban Missile Crisis, loading supplies on a plane. And I thought, man, I was 18 years old. I hadn't even been laid yet. I'm going to die. It's like, so I just didn't care about anything. And so I was a pain in the ass for my parents, but they just saw, I don't know what they saw, but they were really great. So the memories of my family and
you're
really a blessing. Yeah.
You're a true blue family guy. Did you sign up to be in the service, or did you get drafted?
What happened was I was like a graduate high school, didn't know what to do. My cousin was in the Pennsylvania Air National Guard. And he had a cousin, he said, so he recruited, he says, why don't you join the National Guard when you turn 18? You go 4 years. He says, it's the Air Force. If you like it, you switch over and go 4 years. If you don't like it, you go for meetings and you're in for 6 years going to me and stuff. So that's what I did. I joined at 18. I went down to San Antonio and I immediately disliked it. It was like the whole basic training thing. And but I ended up doing like 6 years.
6 years?
Yeah. So I was really fortunate because if I hadn't joined, I'd end up in Vietnam, and who knows.
Wow. So 6 years you were domestic National Guard?
National Guard, yeah. From 1962 to 68. And when I got out in 68, they called up the unit, but I don't think they ever left the States. But that was, wow. It was really, your whole life is just, it's like everything's serendipity. I mean, I've never planned anything ever, and it's worked out.
So tell me someone within your immediate family who had an impact on you, and what specifically was that impact?
Immediate family. Boy, that, it's it's so broad based. I mean, it's from with my Uncle Nick, going up on a roof one day and doing a roofing job with him. I mean, I was like, man, this is a work I can't outdo. Or, Or my dad's big influence was before I started college, I tried to get a job at the Edgar Thompson, the plant where my dad worked. But I think he went and he told, because they were hiring, but every time I go there, they say no. I think he went to the employment office and told him, never hire my son. I don't want him
because he didn't want you to become a factory guy.
He didn't want me working in the factory. Guy was okay, but he didn't want me working in the steel mill. So my
no steel mill.
Yeah,
but
my uncle got me a job working in the factory, which was okay. But I ended up. That's when I ended up deciding to go to college because I just, I started doing too many drugs. It's just like the assembly line was boring, and in my fantasies, I keep, how many times can I fantasize of leading Notre Dame to a national championship as their quarterback? It's like,
dude, you got it all happening. You got to write a book, Tony. This is so good. But what'd you mainly get from your mom?
From my mom, when my wife said she met my mom never criticized me ever. It was just, she was, how you really, because my mom didn't go to school, how you think your dad is always smarter than your mom.
Yeah.
But it really, what my mom was, when I ended up going to her village and meeting all the relatives, they were genetic. They were all really bright people. So my mom, she just had a presence to her where no matter how goofy I was, they removed all the locks from the doors in the house because I was afraid of suicide and that kind of thing. But she just had a presence to her that was almost saintly.
Wow.
She never, she never really, her whole theory was, the acorn doesn't fall from the tree. We're good people. My son's going to be a good person type of.
That is beautiful. You really had a great life. And so, same question, Tony, outside your immediate family, someone who had an impact, and what was that impact?
Okay. That was David Weinkauf. I got, like I said, I started college in January of '68, and I went there and I was getting a degree in psychology, but I ended up getting a work study job at the campus TV station.
Yeah,
and that got me interested in stuff. And this Dave Weinkauf, he got hired there to work for the film unit when all those schools had their own film unit.
Yeah,
and I think because he was only 28 or 29, and I'm close to 25, he felt comfortable being around an older person. So he showed me how to run a Nagra and how to record audio. So that led me into them working with him on a film unit. And he encouraged me to do to apply to grad school for film. And at that time, it's not like today where you had to write all these essays and stuff. I did a short film that I had it from a slideshow that I had made, and I applied to Ohio University. So then the second person is this Joe Anderson, and I tell the story all the time. He was a character. He was the chair of the department. And that year, he took people who were qualified, but then he took chances on people. And that year, he happened to take chances on people with funny last names. He accepted a Kathy Kodak, a Tommy Tucker, a Tom Tuttle, and a Tony Buba. He said, because he wanted to see what a Buba looked like. It's like, I only had about a 2 6s, and so then, so they were those are the two main people afterwards that influenced me. Then, then I got lucky in grad school because it was a program that didn't push you into anything.
Yeah.
And so it was really somewhat directionless, which was really great for me because I had no idea what I wanted to do. And that's when I sort of discovered the diary film and that kind of work and more Buñuel stuff. But yeah, it was really this David Weinkauf who's was the most influential.
But what did you get from George Romero? Was he an influence in any way?
George Romero was working. It was a lot of fun, but also learning a lot of low budget techniques.
Yeah.
Of shooting and also editing. Back then, you edited 16 millimeter, you edited on mag tape, but George was he'd go in, and anytime there was a voiceover or a person off camera, he'd go in and just cut out air between their words enough that would speed it up, but not enough you could tell. So maybe you save 10 seconds here, 5 seconds there, over the course of a film, which made a big difference. And he was a brilliant editor. Then also playing around with sound advances, lead-ins, and coasting out. Yeah, so I learned a lot of different techniques from from
He
Georgia.
is an amazing editor. When I saw Martin, I was like, this guy's an expert editor.
Yeah, yeah.
Did he go to film school or is he self-taught?
Well, he was a graphic person at the Carnegie Mellon. But he was always interested in film. Yeah, he made Super 8 movies as a kid, or 8mm movies, and there's a story. I mean, he ended up like Michael Powell's film, which and I can't think of the name of it now. But I know it was between Scorsese and Romero. They both would be checking it out of the library in New York City.
Oh, you mean like Red Shoes, Michael Powell?
Michael Powell, Red, yeah. But this was the
one where the guy kills people with the tripod.
That movie. Yeah, Michael Powell. That film was great. Yeah.
Peeping Tom, was that the title?
Peeping Tom. No, this was before it was. Was it called General or something? I can't think of the name of it.
Right. It's an earlier Michael Powell.
Earlier film from the 60s. Yeah. But Peeping Tom, I think, almost killed Michael Powell's career. I mean, that was
oh yeah, it is disturbing. But Michael Powell's an amazing filmmaker, and look at who he married, Marty's
Thelma Schoonmaker.
Yeah.
Well, okay, I got a Thelma. See, Thelma Schoonmaker was working. Actually, I know Thelma, and she knows my brother. She's one who really helped my brother out as an editor. Thelma was working in Pittsburgh at WQED right before Raging Bull. And she was waiting for Scorsese to get her into the union so she could cut Raging Bull, because they had worked together on, earlier. And so she was editing these films. So Thelma came, she was her boyfriend at that time. She actually came to my mom's house and had Christmas Eve dinner with the 7 fishes with her and my brother, the whole family. Yeah. So.
Wow. How beautiful. And so your parents raised you Roman Catholic. Do you pray?
Do I pray? I have been lately. I've drifted away from the church, and I drift back in sometimes and drift away, but it's never totally gone. I mean, it's and I really think I'm actually making a short film about a good friend of mine, Ed Clunan, who recently passed. He was a devout communist and a devout Catholic, and so and he's just like and it's like, if you follow Catholicism to that level, I mean, there is that similarity. I mean, he was so I'm working.
That's happy. There's a guy I met through I worked for Frank Zappa, and he was in this book by Peter Agrosio called Once a Catholic. So he interviews Marty Scorsese, Frank Zappa, and all these famous people who were once a Catholic. And then that got Frank interested in having Peter help him write his book. But it is amazing. Now, if God does exist, what would you like God to say to you after you die?
You did your best to try to make this a better world.
Yes. That is so cool. I love that. Do evil people exist, or does evil use people as a vehicle?
This is, it's the whole nature, nurture. I mean, how does someone become evil? I mean, sometimes saying this is an evil person, meanwhile, they're working under the person. It seems like even the most evil are working under the economic system that develops that evil. I mean, and they just pushing that economic system to the extreme of exploiting others. So so if you have a belief system like in pure capitalism, does that make you evil? I mean, or is that because that greed come out of that? I mean, I don't think evil's innate. I don't think there's a devil and there's evil. Yeah.
The real hidden question, Tony, is how do you advise someone to deal with an enemy? And I'll set it up. Alan Watts says, if you acknowledge your enemy, you empower them. Coppola stole from the mob and the samurai. Keep your friends close and your enemies closer. JFK said, forgive your enemy, but don't forget their name. And Fellini says, I need an enemy. So this is a lot of thoughts. The basic question is, how do you advise someone to deal with an enemy? But first, how would you respond to Alan Watts? If you acknowledge your enemy, you empower them.
Well, coming from this traditional Italian family, you never really let anybody really know if they're your enemy or not.
Yeah.
You just don't. Yeah, you don't. I used to drive my wife crazy, I think, with like how I would interact with some people when she knew that I disliked them, or I thought they were not a good person. I mean, a lot of this is from my grandmother and from my dad, who said, when I was a kid, said, never let anybody know what you think about them. You never know when you might have to use them. That was like,
right. So you're saying, that's funny, because this skateboarding philosopher in Venice taught me this. When I asked him that question, he said, the word name is enemy. Enemy. As soon as you name him, so you mean your family tradition was, don't even let them on that you think they're your enemy. Like,
I mean, I've changed that, and now, I mean, I do change that now for some people I realize that I'm never going to need or never want to be with. Then I'll come out vehemently against them. But yeah, there's some on the edges. Okay, that's it's really. I mean, isn't that old joke about Italy, about how after World War II, I mean, all the fascists came through Italy and killed all the communists. Then all the fascists came through Europe and killed all the communists, and all the communists came through and killed all the fascists. Italy didn't lose any population. It was sort of like they just switched.
Wow.
But yeah, that was, I don't know. But yeah, my family was, I mean, yeah, my family history, they were pretty close about that. And my grandmother really didn't trust Americanos. It's like,
wow. But Tony, say a friend comes to you and they say, I'm being bullied. What advice would you give them?
I mean, that I would say, you got to go after it. You just have to. I mean, if that person's so openly, I mean, you just got to do something. You have to, like, yeah. I mean, that is like there's like that whole sort of thing, sort of with people that are on the borderline, but there's some just to the extreme where you really just got to denounce them.
Yeah. Here's the follow-up. Nassim Taleb said, games were created to give non-heroes the illusion of winning. In real life, we don't know who wins or loses, but we can tell who a hero is. Gregory Bateson says, if the criminal gets caught, does he go, whoa, my criminal skills weren't up to snuff? Or does he go, oh, I did something morally and socially wrong? So again, it's a lot of prompts. The basic question is, you can go wherever you want, but the basic question is, does punishment work?
I mean, I don't really think punishment works.
Yeah.
I don't. I mean, if you brought that up, it's interesting. Another cousin in Italy, I was over there one year, he had his car stolen.
Yeah.
But he didn't get upset. He said, the person that stole the car was better at their job than I was protecting it.
That's an amazing attitude. I'm a bike rider, and if someone steals my bike, I go, they needed it more than me. Just get a new bike. Yeah, but again, it's like we want to be careful, because if someone who's psychotic is killing people, do you want to put them in jail? And does that reform them or make it worse? And some people say, well, punishment works for the people who are punishing. I mean, I like capital punishment. I mean, I don't think anybody kills at that moment is thinking about when they end up killing somebody that they're going to get they're going to die. Yeah.
I mean, that's not it. Then others, I mean, I have within my family, there's a lot of paranoid schizophrenia.
Yeah.
So then, when I have cousins get off their meds and it looks like they're doing bad things. I mean, it's just so difficult. There's a line. This is such a fine line.
Well, that's what happened supposedly to Rob Reiner's son. They changed his meds and he freaked out and he didn't even know he did it. And he still, he couldn't figure it out. So who knows? It's like, you got to be careful if you're on meds and when do the doctors change it.
Yeah, there's like I had a cousin who was, his parent, and the doctor wanted him to quit smoking, so they put a patch on him. Then that totally screwed up his meds, and the next thing he's in aluminum foil out in the yard. I mean,
yeah,
that's.
So Tony, James Joyce was the first projectionist in Dublin 100 years ago. He had Volta Cinema, and he basically checked out. He said, "This is stupid. Why should I go inside a building and see a movie of a tree when I can go outside and see a real tree?" And years later, Faulkner said sometimes the best fiction is more true than journalism. Why do we have to recreate things in order to get them? Why do we have to go to a theatrical play of people acting out life? Why don't we just live life?
Yeah, I think some people are afraid of living life. I mean, when I mentioned the Sal film, I know I showed it at times and people just hated it because why make a film about this person?
Yeah.
But the same group of people will go to Broadway and spend, hundreds of dollars on a Mamet play of the one with now I can't think of it. It takes place in Buffalo about the thieves, and I can't think of the name of the play.
Right. There's all kinds of films that are about Truman Capote or all these films. Yeah.
I think it's like the difference of going to see it on a stage is that there's that distance where a doc. Sometimes with a doc, people don't feel that distance. They think why do this, and then what is the point? What's the moral at the end of it? But I mean I've been fortunate that sometimes like my experiences have been like a stage play that have been out on the street. You're there, from hanging out in Venice. You're in that moment, and it's just and nothing in a theater can capture that moment that you were actually just in.
Yeah. Like I made one feature film and I've done some photography, but I never wanted to be a filmmaker or a photographer because I was like, why ruin it? Just live the life. Just live and don't try to capture it. But you can do both. And most people say to that question, well, we can do both. And they think, oh, you're asking what is the purpose of art? And whatever, we recreate things for a reason. Like, when you've kind of more pursued the documentary world, but you have made some fiction films, right?
Yeah, I made one fiction film, which I did a pretty lousy job directing. I stiffened up and didn't get creative enough in my style. But I did one that was based on Jim Daniels play, a notebook, no pets. And what really attracted to me was this. It's one of these things that make a terrible movie, but for me, it's because the person had nothing happen. There was no growth in that individual. And to me, it was just, and I just enjoyed that. And I remember I showed it one time at this conference and I said, if I'm remaking again, what I probably should have done, I should have had sex right at the beginning. I should have one car crash and a bar fight.
Yeah.
This one filmmaker in the audience says, "Well, that's interesting you said that. I thought you just didn't know how to make a film." He says, "I didn't realize that was a conscious decision on your part."
That's funny. So, and those are the tropes like you're trying to get away with. We have all the tropes and we have all these because this is exactly leading into the question. A screenwriting teacher said to me, "A great film is when you can clearly see the intention of the maker." Stanley Kubrick says the opposite. A great film is when you can clearly not see the intention of the maker. What role does intention play in your creative process when you're making a film?
Well, when I'm making a film, I mean, what my intention is, it really doesn't matter. It's how the audience reads it.
Yeah.
I mean, so if I intended something to be there and the audience doesn't read it, what am I going to say? The audience is stupid. They didn't understand me. What you really got to do is, for me, I made this film called Struggles in Steel. There's a story of African-American steel workers. And I was showing it. Me and Ray were going around showing cuts of it, trying to get feedback. And every time we'd show it, people that went to it and say, well, my father was Irish. He also had a lot of discrimination when he worked in the mill. Or my uncle was Polish. He had a lot of discrimination in the mill and he had to fight through that. And so they weren't even concentrating on, they're bringing their own experiences. So then, so I looked at that as not being the audience fault, but my fault as the filmmaker. So I went back and we recut and I put scenes, put a whole section in about lynchings that took place in the 30s and the 20s of African Americans. And of course, there's nobody, I mean, aside the one famous lynching with the Italians in New Orleans, there's really no history of that with other ethnic groups. So that ended that discussion.
Yeah.
So then, once again, like what your intent is as a filmmaker, it doesn't matter how the audience ends up reading it. And then you got to figure out how the audience reads it, how they're going to read it in 20 years or 10 years. He's thinking like, how's it going to be read down the line?
Really good, Tony, because you got ESP, because that's exactly the next question. Marcel Duchamp said there's no art without an audience. How much are you thinking of your audience when you're making your film? Because what you just laid out was a pre-release screening, which is called a test screening. But while you're making it without test screenings, how much are you thinking of your viewer?
I think a lot of the viewer, I mean, I've thought of the viewer from almost day one I started making films. You bring up the Ann Arbor Film Festival.
Yeah.
I went through, when I first started grad school and making films, I went through the Ann Arbor program. And when I did, they published the rejects, they published the running times of all the films.
Yeah.
So what I went through, that all the films they showed, I figured out what the average running time was. It was like,
wow.
It was like 10.5 minutes to 11 minutes. So I made sure every film I made in grad school fell in that range.
Oh my God. But did you attend Ann Arbor School, or did you attend the festival or not?
No, I didn't attend the festival at that time. No, I would read the program. Yeah.
You would read the program.
Yeah.
And you figure it, that's an amazing statistic, because I know a guy who taught film in Colorado, and he entered films in Ann Arbor many times, and he figured the perfect running time for a film in that festival is 8 minutes, or that's the ideal. You figured it more a little towards 10.
10, yeah. That time was, it depended on what, that was, I figured a little more when I was looking at the rejects and how long they were and the ones they accepted. And I was like, so it fell in this in that range. Then working on Struggles in Steel, I knew there was right from the beginning, we knew what we didn't want. One we wanted was a lot of extreme close-ups on African Americans, people faces, so you could see the skin tone, the textures, and that. Also, we didn't want to interview any white person that would confirm the stories that African Americans were telling us, because why did you need a white person to verify this story? Yeah. Then we also did not want to interview anybody that was a foreman in the mill that treated African Americans badly, because at that time, Dances with the Wolves came out. Yeah. And the audience identified with the Kevin Costner character. And they would, if they were there, they would have been him. Well, 90% of that audience would have been slaughtering Indians. They would have been with the cavalry. I mean, and so I didn't want anybody in the audience saying, well, geez, if I was a foreman, I would have treated that person differently. So I had those concepts going into it of what I wanted, what Ray and I wanted, and what didn't want to do. Yeah, that was sort of, we had thought that out. That was like sort of our boundaries. Yeah.
What year did you do that Ann Arbor program schematic where you?
That was probably when I first started grad back in the 70s, 71, 72, something like that.
Wow, because that's exactly when I was there, from 72 to 80.
Yeah.
And amazing what you did there, because I just found my notes, because I was on the screening committee, and there was only 400 films entered when I was on the screening committee. So we would sit there and watch all 400 films with 8 people, and we would take notes and then we would vote on them. And Gus Van Zandt entered a film and he got 0 out of 8 votes, and his film got rejected. But in the long run, he became a pretty decent Hollywood director. So who knows? You can't predict.
Yeah, you have any idea which film was that? Because I love this film, Zen and the Art of Eating. That was like
Is it a short film?
Yeah, a short film was Zen and the Art of Eating. Yeah.
I don't know if it's that. I've tried to Zen and the Art of Eating.
Yeah, and also My Best Friend was another short film of his.
My Best Friend. Yeah, I don't know, but it's endless, and it goes back to Palazzolo taking your film out of the reject pile. I mean, Craig Baldwin's film was taken out of the reject pile and it won. I have a list of 5 films that have been taken out of the reject pile. And that's my big issue is like, well, if you're not publishing the reject file, the people don't even know what got rejected. The list is too long. I goes, the list isn't too long. You can publish it online. There's no limit on how long, So it's a big issue. But Tony, I was wondering if we could just do a part 2, like maybe 5-6 months down the line, because we really didn't get into documentary filmmaking. Okay. And I have so many questions in that regard. I mean, I'll just review a couple of them, and just to think about them. You've thought about all this anyways, but it is stuff we've talked about, and I don't want you to answer them now, but it's like this whole division between direct cinema and cinema verite, which is a fine line. But the direct cinema guys are like the Maisel brothers, Leacock, Pennebaker, and Wiseman, and they're fly on the wall. They're observational. Then there's the cinema verite, which is Zygmunt Vertov, man with the moving camera, Jean Rouch, and even Oppenheimer, who's a big, superstar now with his films. They're called fly in the soup.
Yeah, well, like Jeff Krines and Joel DeMott was 17. Yeah.
Oh my God, that is heavy because one of them just died in the last.
Joel just died. Yeah, Joel just died. Yeah.
Didn't they make Demon Lover Diary?
Demon Lover Diary. Right.
Oh my God, that was an amazing film. Yeah. And what was the first film you mentioned by them?
17.
Oh, 17.
It was part of the Middletown series that PBS had funded, which they didn't air because it had interracial kissing on it.
Oh my God. And then, talking about Herzog, he has that manifesto where he distinguishes, and you haven't brought up the word truth that much, but isn't documentary filmmaking sort of a pursuit of the truth, or some sort of truth? Like Louis Buñuel says it so well. I'm for anyone who seeks the truth, but I part ways when they claim they found it. And I want to go deep into that whole thing, because that's a lot, because your films, to me, Sal, is getting the truth because it upsets people, because they can't handle the truth. They want it to be candy coated.
People that's why Frank Capra has been such a success over the years. People want that candy coated.
And then what about the documentaries he made? Aren't those heavy docs?
Yeah.
I mean, I haven't studied Frank in that regard, but I know I've cried and grew up with feel-good cinema, like most of us grew up with films that made us feel good. Not, but here, the Herzog distinguishing in that manifesto, he was for ecstatic truth, which is like a monk having an epiphany. Like James Joyce said, an epiphany in everydayness does not have to agree with facts. I mean, Herzog, this, he would pay people to do things in his docs, like do this. And it's like, that's not documentary filming, but he has a right to do whatever he wants.
Yeah.
But if it gets categorized as a doc, then, you don't generally do that. Then his second division from ecstatic truth was physical truth. That's Michael Moore. You have a belly laugh. And then number 3 was emotional truth. That's Ken Burns. You sit around with your family and you cry. And then the fourth is intellectual truth, which is like Chris Marker or Agnes Varda. So it's endless. We could really talk about it because, I mean, it is an amazing genre that you've delved deep into, and it's so important where it's gone in the last 20, 30 years.
Yeah, it's shifted a lot. I mean, I think in many ways, a lot of documentary, I mean, now you have these sort of pastoral docs, where they shoot like 1,000 hours of material, and it's that 16:9 frame and sort of distance. And then they look for that one person in there to drive the story, that kind of
I mean, to me, I used to have Netflix years ago, and I was always like going through the docs, and it was all about gurus who bought limos and screwed their cults. I mean, every doc was that. I was like, give me a break. How many of these can we see? And I don't need to see them, but I'm lucky because we have USC and UCLA here. So I thought when I got here 45 years ago, I thought, well, I'll go to UCLA because that's more a true blue film as an art form, and USC is more a film school for business. Well, as it turned out, I had a screening at USC with my experimental films, and I go there rather than UCLA, and they have free screenings with the filmmakers there. So, I get to see these really good documentaries in a great setting with the filmmaker and have discussion, which, you've had most of your career where you can talk with the audience. And so that's enabled me to stay up and seeing, because, the truth is, Tony, most people our age never go to films anymore.
Right. I mean, it's been tough ever since COVID. I mean, really, I haven't been to too many films.
Right, but in the big screen, they're like, why go see a film? You can watch it on TV on your screen at home. You can hit stop. I mean, we also grew up with that attitude. You don't stop a film in the middle of the film. You sit there for all 90 minutes, whether you like it or not.
Right. It was a fascist medium in some ways.
It was really fascist. And, go into Italian fascist. You know who invented the film festival?
No.
Mussolini.
Oh, geez, I had no idea.
And the other doc you got to see, besides the Bolex doc, look that up, in the soundtrack to Coup d'etat. I mean, if you pursue screening, there's a doc on subtitling films. And Mussolini was the one who pushed for dubbing films because he didn't want people to read a film. He wanted them to feel like they were talking in their dialect.
Wow.
He knew the power of cinema. But the ultimate question we'll ask you in part 2, Tony, is from Sidney Lumet, who made really socially important films. And he said, films can't do diddly squat, but it ain't going to keep me from trying. Like, how much can films really change us, especially in the political climate we're in now?
Right. Yeah.
Well, it's really been a pleasure, Tony. I really appreciate your time and energy, and you're really articulate. And it's beautiful what you've taught me today. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you for this opportunity.
Yeah. And even though I'm going to hit the end broadcast button now, I hope this never ends and we can keep talking forever.
Okay.
Especially in part 2. Thank you so much.